Hello, you are now tuning into NevNotVada Radio, the park edition. I just felt like I wanted to come to the park because I can. And I've been wanting to go to the park for a hot minute, and I kept putting it off for like a multitude of reasons and excuses and whatnot, and just being like, oh, but the mosquitoes, but it's too hot, but I don't want to go alone, blah, 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 blah. All very valid excuses and emotions to feel in the moment, like hesitance. I just wanted to clear my head or whatever. I guess do a video journal more so, because I don't really have any think pieces to make while out here. I don't really feel like giving myself, or at least pressuring myself into like a rigid, structured format right now in terms of recording a video. Thought I was having a heart attack this morning, I'm not gonna lie. Like, I thought I was dying, but I didn't die. So, but the thought was scary enough, the possibility, like, oh, what if I am dying? Like, it's just lights out, it's just over. And I think what was more scary to me, honestly, is like this fear of dying and like nobody being home to like save me or help me, um, which is like completely understandable. It's not like something I ruminate about like over and over and over again, but I guess I am just aware that I have that fear. And I think that just kind of ties into like how for this entire week I've been kind of like withdrawn socially. I haven't been calling my friends as much. I just deactivated my Instagram account. I inherently understand that like to have my Instagram active does not mean that I have to put on a social performance or post every day or at least consistently. Like, I can post when I feel like it. When I get to a point where I don't even feel like doing that, I'm kind of like, yeah, let me deactivate. Back to like the immense fear that I was like struck with earlier today. I just kind of panicked out of nowhere. I don't know like what happened. I don't think I was having a heart attack. I don't think, I was having a cardiac event per se. Like, I hadn't really had coffee that morning, but I do think that I was dehydrated. I think that plays a big factor in like anxiety for me and stress. I was just distracted this morning, and so like drinking water wasn't the first thing on my mind. And so as I'm like, I guess, gearing up within the first hour of being awake, I didn't drink water. So then like I had that like spike in anxiety out of nowhere, and I was just so concerned that something bad would happen to me health wise while I was alone in the house, because I was alone in the house. But it's whatever. I don't really go to this park often. It's been almost a year since I stepped foot in this park, honestly, truly. I have the pictures to prove it because the last time I came here, I took pictures, and that was a hot little minute ago. I think that currently for myself, what I've been experiencing over the past week internally in my head and just emotionally, I've definitely been feeling some sort of like rejection wounds resurfacing and feelings of inadequacy bubbling to the surface, and a lot of self doubt and questioning myself, and also just like disappointment, sadness. And I guess that kind of ties into like the little, spike of panic I experienced earlier. I have not had a very lovely summer. I think that the summer that I had was better than last summer in terms of like my mood states and my control over at least my immediate surroundings and happenstances, things that I interact with every day, the things that I engross myself in, and also I felt a lot more grounded in myself this summer, in the sense that I wasn't just like scattered everywhere trying to make love fit into a box, or at least trying to capture love as if it was something to be, caught. I had an okay summer. I didn't go to the beach, I didn't go to the pool, and that's okay. That is also okay. My summer wasn't filled with love in a romantic sense. Um, And that is something that I have felt some semblance of sadness surrounding. I was a lot more solitary, and not in the sense that like I was shying away from any form of like romantic, socialization, flirting, whatever you may have it, but I feel like I didn't make it like this big thing as it was last summer. And that's not to say like, oh, look at me, like I got insane ball knowledge. Look at the way that I was able to stay to myself this summer. I didn't get caught up in silly antics. Like I did not necessarily get caught up in silly antics, but I feel like I was still processing a lot of, just romantic mishaps within my endeavors before, the summer started. Like I feel like I was still processing a lot of shit that happened to me in like the very near past, in the very close past. Um, and I think that that was kind of like my driving and like motivating factor in at least maybe abstaining from physical intimacy this summer, and not in like a true abstinence way of like, oh, I'm doing this for purity or I'm doing this to reconnect with myself. It was more so like, I know that physical intimacy is a very human and normal thing to want. It's a very natural thing. And at the same time, I know that I'm a very sensitive person emotionally, and therefore, I'm not going to say I needed to be smarter. I instead think that, you know, I wanted to be more mindful of not putting myself in positions where I would find it hard to say no, or where I would say yes only because I was filled with desire and craving rather than, genuinely feeling a connection from someone. And I'm not saying that physical intimacy, at least in its like most extreme form, needs to be viewed from this marital and I guess like rigid framework of you only can and should give people access to you who you are in a relationship with, even though that is, my fundamental belief. That is a fundamental belief of mine. I am not saying that that is generally how it should be for everyone else, because my ducks won't quack for everyone and everyone's ducks won't quack for me. So yeah, I definitely got stung by a mosquito, but I'm like high key not even mad that I got stung by a mosquito. um, it's just a part of being out in nature or whatever. I feel like I did so good with like abstaining this summer. It's something that I'm choosing to be transparent about, rather than something that I'm just saying to say it and I don't care and I don't put no thought into it. It's just something I'm choosing to be transparent about. Also because like I've like previously mentioned about like being a sensitive person, um I think that feeling rejected after having such a close experience or interaction like that with someone, especially somebody who you do feel romantically inclined towards, and you have compassion for this person, and it's not just in a casual sense. It's a very serious emotion and desire to connect with said person you were interacting with, and that can really disorient you, feeling rejected, or like, it didn't mean as much to them as it did to you, or second guessing how soon it happened, or, you know, just when like the label is ambiguous. I guess there can feel like, you don't have a right to feel these intense emotions. You don't have a right to have such an intense emotional kind of like whiplash after intimacy, where you feel so entrenched in not only the memory but also like the hope for the future. And I found that really destructive for me, because it also like would make me feel more naive and like more jaded, and it would kind of make me go ditzy, just like absolutely ditzy. What do the kids say nowadays? They say Delulu. I would become delulu, and that's why I kind of just took a step back from just all of that aspect, um, while not shying away from emotional intimacy, but just being more physically reserved, more sensually reserved. Even that can be hard. It can be really hard when you feel like you're foregoing um, such a natural urge and such a desire, and I chose to not really give myself it, but I chose to not disrupt my mood state and state of mind, um, by participating in something that is very well known to disrupt me and kind of send me into emotional dysregulation, obsessive thought patterns, not really being able to like just be myself because my mind is so hooked on the thought of another person, what they're doing, do they like me, is this like superficial, or is it, really gonna go somewhere? Should I have done the horizontal tango? Should I have even danced that dance? I didn't seek out like a summer of abstinence in an attempt to come up with more solutions or answers or like guides on how to stop things from happening. It's more so like I just wanted to stop something from happening to me repeatedly that was so heartbreaking every time I experienced it. And ultimately, I know that being able to like differentiate between like a superficial connection versus something that is actually emotionally vulnerable and intimate, um, knowing all those things or having all those tools don't necessarily stop it from happening. It just decreases the chances of it happening. The chances are low, but never zero unless you abstain. And in my case, I wanted to make it completely zero. Like, no chance in hell. Not coming out of the summer or not entering the summer with a partner. I think that really fucked me up. Just a little bit, but fucked me up nonetheless. Um, and just kind of shook things around in my brain. And I think that's kind of what I'm like experiencing now. It's like that wave of like, I did not slow dance at a cookout to, soul classics. I didn't have a storybook, movie cinematic summer. I didn't really expect to, but it's always nice to hope. It's always nice to be filled with hope and to carry hope. And there are ants just crawling all over my bag. They know cunt when they see it, okay? They're attracted to the cunt of my bag. Clock that. I am appreciative of, this summer for um, kind of like further proving that I am, capable of not needing to depend on someone 24/7 for emotional support. Just being able to kind of process my emotions, um, myself alone or with friends, rather than sticking strong to this belief that I had that, I need another person. I need to be in tandem. I need to be in romantic tandem with a partner in order to be my most stable and secure self. And I feel like I had a lot of moments of like security this summer. Um, and understanding that, feelings of loneliness and that, desires for emotional intimacy and even physical intimacy while also practicing some semblance of abstinence does not mean that I am insecure in like my solitude, or that I am incapable of, I guess just rocking out in my own energy, or just rocking out in my own like headspace and mind. What I have realized and come across is that desire or feelings of loneliness are not an antithesis or an antitheses. I don't know. Is that plural or is it like a collection? I Whatever. That loneliness and desire are not antithetical. They are not antithetical. They do not indicate or oppose one's own ability to be emotionally self-sufficient and emotionally regulate by themselves, and that my desire is human and my desire is normal, um, and also that I might be demisexual. I might be demisexual. And that's not something I've put much thought into. Like, I'm not ruminating over it, but I think the proof's in the pudding. I think the proof is in the pudding. And if you don't know what like demi means, at least for me, I don't really experience sexual attraction, at least like, like most certain sexual attraction of like, oh yeah, I see a hot person, I want to get jiggy. I have to form a connection with that hot person, or like someone is able to become alluring and like attractive to me through connection rather than just being, I guess, 100% attractive off the get-go. Being demi possibly being demi. When I said that I become very naive leading up to physical intimacy or following physical intimacy, is like, I think what happens is like I kind of question how serious or deep or real or valid the connection even is to have gotten me to that point, because I have never really been able to participate. I've never really been able to participate in like intimacy unless I thought, felt, believed, assumed a connection was there, or I was told a connection was there that I could also verify within myself using some sort of context or some sort of reasoning, like, oh yeah, no, we have a connection. Like, there is some level of trust, of vulnerability, of understanding about each other there. And so I think that is what would steer me more towards being physically intimate and kind of give my brain like the green light, to kind of feel that way or whatever. Um, and then I think the confusion afterwards was kind of like, okay, now we did that, duh. But then there's like a withdrawal from the other person, like the other person withdraws, or their actions and their words become less indicative of like there being a valid, genuine connection, at least in the way that I think or feel. Um, so the connection wasn't, or at least the connection or the feelings were not as strong on their end as they were on mine. And that that will send my brain for like a complete tailspin, like a complete whirlwind of emotions. And my brain has always registered physical intimacy as an indicator that somebody wants to be with you. And I feel like that's because of the media I consumed growing up. I watched a lot of Disney Channel, and um, of course, not just Disney Channel, but I think the very basis of like any sort of romance, like kissing somebody, right? Like you would only kiss somebody that you really wanted to date, right? Or, uh, a lot of the relationships that would happen within Disney media were very monogamous, romantic, always like hyper monogamous, And I am a monogamous person. Um, and it was also always kind of very, cut and dry. Like the the people who had a crush on each other would always end up together, or the person who had the crush on the other person would always have a crush on the other person, even if they were rejected, right? Think that kind of like fed into my brain of like, oh, well, even if I do get rejected, there's still a chance in the future, right? Like, there's still a chance in the future. There's no shame in me being hopeful. And there's no shame in me being hopeful. I just think that now that I've grown up or whatever, like it does feel embarrassing because it feels like humiliation of sorts that I do to myself, or that happens to me or whatever. Um, and I guess expanding upon that, like my earlier adolescence, I shifted away from Disney. I had access to Netflix and I didn't have any restrictions on what I could watch. So a lot of the storylines were a lot more mature and a lot more of that, like, I guess, heavy petting or whatever in the storylines of those shows. And like, it was kind of like this big thing, right? For the characters to grant each other access to one another in a very intimate and close way. And I always thought that if somebody got jiggy with you, it's because they wanted you romantically in a serious way, or because y'all were together in a serious way, or y'all were growing together in a serious romantic, relationship way. And I remember when the actual reality of that was broken for me, and I realized that maybe I viewed I viewed close quarters and sleeping with someone as something you only did if you really, really like them, and not in just like a casual like way, not in like a non-committal but still super like way, but in like a committal for certain super duper romantically attracted to each other way. Um, I was not aware, okay? I was not aware that everyone did not think like that or feel like that. I was not aware that a lot of people viewed it like more casually. Or at least, I guess I would say, I don't want to generalize, but I would say that a lot of men view it kind of differently. Um, and that started to just shift more and more as I just grew older. And I'm like, wow, okay. Um, I feel like all of the romances I grew up watching through TV and movies started to kind of die out. Like that started to like shift out of the, general popular consensus of like I guess just the status quo. And, we have made great improvements as a society to become more, to become more sex positive. Positivity around like embracing one's own sensuality and being sensual with another person and also being sensual with yourself. I think positivity surrounding that is great. I think that's amazing. Um, and I would also like to say that, you know, there is no shame for like doing what fits you and doing what you align with and practicing relationships dynamics and styles and whatever works for you with transparency and communication. I am just a person who is I guess very serious about how I view sleeping with someone, and I take it very serious. And I'm a very emotional person when it comes to that. Like I've never been able to look at the act of it as a whole as just, oh, it's just like, oh, sleeping with someone is just sleeping with someone. It's not indicative of a deeper connection. It's not a deeper form of intimacy. Like, oh, it's just something that feels good. And that is a completely valid take for someone to have. That's just not how I feel, and that's not how I view it. And that is okay. Like, I'm not going to argue that I'm right and everyone else who thinks differently, who prefers casual relationships and casual intimacy, is wrong, because they're not wrong. That genuinely works for them. Um, but I don't align myself with that. I don't have a problem that you want something casual, but don't say that you want something more serious just because you want access to me. Like, accept the fact that if you want something casual, then you cannot have access to me. And that's okay. Because I also know that because I want something serious and you want something casual, I can't have access to you, and I should not want access to you, because we are not in agreement. We are not in agreement over what we want. What we want are two different things. Therefore, 2 plus 3 will never equal fucking 10, okay? 2 plus 3 is not going to equal 10. So, yeah, that's my thoughts about that. something that is also scary is like, when people tell their experiences about how someone like showed up very genuine and everything was going perfectly, and then like boom, everything falls apart, and this is like months on months of like dating, talking, getting to know each other, whatever. And that is a very scary thing. I do think it's not, I can't say it's not that common. I don't have statistics. Even though that's like a very scary thought, like in the back of my mind, like, oh my God, what if someone is literally just faking it? What if someone's like faking their emotions in order to like get access to me? Like, that is such a scary thought. But it's also not a deterrent. It's not a deterrent. It's not something that like makes me go, oh my God, just because this scary thing could possibly happen to me, I'm going to like just avoid it altogether. That's something I had to realize too. But well, look at the sun coming out through the clouds. I'm really glad that I just sat here in the park and talked to myself. Well, yeah, pretty much talked to myself, talked to my camera, especially because I forget things a lot. So like, I guess if I wasn't recording, I would forget most of what I was like thinking about while I was here. And so like, I would have the memory of like being here, right? I'd be like, oh yeah, I went to the park last week, but I won't remember my thought processes of what was happening in my head as I was here. And the park is still as beautiful as it always was, especially like when the sun is a couple of hours away from setting in the late summer sun. So I've refreshed my memory of what the park looks like, what it feels like, what it sounds like, how it feels to be here. And that's really nice. And I still do, have conflicted emotions. I still do feel like there is an emotional maelstrom, just brewing inside of me. Um, but it feels less scary in this moment, at least. I don't know. I could go home and cry. Who knows? I could go home and not cry. I could cry all night tonight or tomorrow morning. But right now, in this very moment, that doesn't matter. And I'm just happy to be here and that I wasn't having a heart attack this morning. Go to a park that you've been neglecting to go to. This is a pretty, I won't say inactive park, but like I guess the likelihood of like being disturbed here is very low. Not very low, but low but never zero. Thank you for tuning in. This has been NevNotVada Radio, and I think that everything is going to be okay. And fall is coming, and that feels very sad, but also even more of a reason to kind of be happy because I don't have to relive the previous fall. I can definitely hold space for the possibility of new memories to be formed this fall and to have a different tone to it, just like this summer had a different tone. So that's that on that. I hope you're well, and I hope you find a moment to give yourself peace today. And if all else fails, go to a fucking park and talk to your camera. Like I did. It didn't fix me, but it made it a little easier.